We turn it down just a... Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our annual marching band concert. Testing 1, 2, 3. There we go. This is our way of saying thank you to you for all the support that you have given us. This all started back on August 7th on a hot Tuesday night, and here we are 14 weeks later and closing out the season. It has gone so quickly, and we've enjoyed it. Some of us are approaching it with various emotions. I'm sure many of the seniors are ecstatic. It's the last marching time for them, but a lot of them are very upset about it or sad because it's the last time they're going to be involved with the band as far as a marching unit during a football season. It's an emotional time. It's also a very happy time because we get a chance to play for you in a cold or in a warm gym rather than in a cold field. So we hope that you'll sit back and relax and enjoy the concert every so often. We're going to stop along the way and mention a few names and thank a few people because that's what the concert is all about. We're going to continue now with the next 3 tunes that you'll see on the program, and I'm going to ask our student conductor, Doug Highwater, to come out and conduct those for you. Doug? I'd like to begin a few of these thank yous tonight. First of all, I would like to thank the people that worked closest with me. Those people that were here for the rehearsals, came out to camp, came to the summer practices, helped me right along, more or less my right-hand men and women, so to speak. Those are, first of all, my wife Judy. Ask her to stand. She came out to camp and has worked with the band right along. And my assistant directors, Joanne Slade, Bob Byers, who's also that golden tone of voice that you hear on Friday nights, and Chuck Baker. They would stand, please, and be recognized. Secondly, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the band boosters. We have a very, very active band booster organization. I think we get a little concerned that we don't always have a large turnout at the meetings. And by the way, they are the third Wednesday of every month if you care to come. But they are always there when we need them. For example, when we had our marching band festival, it took quite a few people to put this festival together, from things like running the concession stand, and we were helped by the athletic boosters, to people coming in helping putting uniforms on the students, making sure that we got the uniforms collected after the festival, right out in the parking lot, making sure that all 20 buses that were coming were parked so that they could get in and out easily, and we didn't have traffic tie-ups. And it takes a lot of people to do that. And I'm going to read a few names to you, and I know I'm going to miss a couple, and I apologize for that. So I'm going to say thank you to the band boosters and the people that helped as a whole. But to those people whose names I want to offer you now, first of all, to the uniform committee. And every Friday night, we don't take the uniforms home, and your parents are aware of that. They have to leave them here. And this way we avoid losing uniform parts because it's very easy to get them lost. So the students have to come early. They have to get fitted. If there's a problem, we have to take care of it. And I don't have to worry about it. I just turn to my uniform committee and say, this lad needs this, or this young lady needs this, and it's taken care of immediately. So I'm going to ask these people to stand and be recognized, and please hold your applause until the list is read. These people have helped along the way, either with the fitting or with the initial outfitting of the uniforms. Our uniform chairman, Mrs. Sturmack, Mrs. Bohenig, Mrs. Caputo, Mrs. Klein, my wife Judy, Mrs. Grimm, Mr. and Mrs. Kuhar, Mrs. Lempinen, Mrs. Otiki, Mrs. Ozanik, Mrs. Pitek, Mrs. Shazer, Mrs. Salon, and Mrs. Telmings. That's a lot of people. Would you stand and be recognized, please? An unsung hero, and I don't know where we would be without this man, Mr. Ed Klein, running the concession stand for us. We have, in the Chagrin Valley Conference, we have a tradition with the bands. All the bands do it. We are very close, the directors within the conference. We have meetings and we know each other well. And when we take our bands there, or they bring our bands here, it's a free refreshment thing. They feed us, we feed them. It just is a nice esprit de corps among the bands. My officers go over third quarter or fourth quarter and meet their officers. I go over during the first quarter and make sure that the director has everything he needs. And we just try to keep it very friendly. And every time we've had a band come, every time I've gone over to them and said, now, there's going to be free refreshments for you over at the concession stand. I know one of your band boosters, a Mr. Klein, came over and already contacted me. This man has done so much to take the load, just to be courteous and show these people that Wickliffe has a lot of courtesy and a lot of class. And I'd like to ask Mr. Klein to stand up and be recognized for the job he has done. It's one of those things that may not seem important to the general public, but it means a lot. I know when we go away and one of their boosters comes up to me and says, are you the director? Of course, I have a direct jacket that says director on it, so it was a good guess when he made it. Well, there are refreshments over there for you. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel like they care and they're concerned, so I say thank you to him. I would like to thank Mr. Kevin Fielding and his crew of fathers who helped with the festival parking. 2 festivals in 4 days. They were out here parking not only cars, but loads of buses. They had them parked, got them in and out, and I've received letters from directors, from visiting bands who have commented to me on how well this was run. This is if you use the term hassle when we go away, sometimes our buses are buried in the back and it takes us forever to get our band home because nobody seems to remember that we're there when the games are over or the festivals are over. But these gentlemen are to be congratulated, and I'd ask Mr. Kevin Fielding and his crew of bus parkers to stand up and be recognized if they're here. Again, things like that people don't see, that you kind of take for granted, but they are so important. So we have a few more to read, but we'll go on with the concert and we'll get back to some more a little later. go any further, if you are watching over to my right, you're watching young ladies perform routine after routine, never tiring, never ending. I'd like to give a special hand to Lisa Sturmack and our majorettes. Stand up, girls, and be recognized. Majorettes. Lisa's done a wonderful job with the girls this year. It's so nice to have a competent head majorette where I don't have to worry about taking the baton and showing them what to do with it, which would be a joke in itself, I'm sure. It's nice to have competent people doing those jobs for me. And if you enjoyed our percussion section, let's give them a round of applause with Chris Brown, our percussion section leader. I almost forgot one person in relation to our band camp. My heavens, where would we be without our camp nurse, Mrs. Donna Shazer? Where are you? Stand up here, and she's our... There she is. Besides being an excellent nurse and helping out quite a bit, she's also a champ at Trivial Pursuit. She does that for you. Okay, I'm going to introduce our Band Booster President, Mr. Ron Kuhar. He's going to talk to you a little bit about our Band Booster program, and we are going to award some prizes for the candy sale on behalf of the dentists of Wickliffe. I'd like to thank you. Everybody needs a good cavity once in a while, and if enough candy was sold, I think we can keep the dentist in business another year. Mr. Ron Kuhar.
Good evening. The Band Boosters has a long history in Wickliffe of supporting the instrumental music program, and what that really means is financially supporting them. So every time we have an activity, well, as Mike said before, while there's not an awful lot of people that attend the meetings because of other commitments, every time there's a need for volunteers to serve in one capacity or another, they're always willing to come forth. We have just completed our candy sale. As you saw me out there earlier, as you came in, I sort of feel like a carnival shill out there, pushing the remnants of the candy. And I invite you to buy them at cost. Everything that we don't sell tonight, we have to pay for, and we're selling it at cost. So if you haven't bought already, I invite you to purchase candy, 4 for $1 or two for $1, depending on the size. In relationship to the candy sale, there's several people that should be recognized for the many hours that they spent working with me and my wife as the co-chairman of the program. These are the candy captains, the men and women that allow children to come to their homes to pick up candy and handle the basic bookkeeping activities for the last 3 weeks or so. That's Mrs. Flajancic, Mrs. Ford, Mrs. Williams, Mrs. Judd, Mr. Klein, Mrs. Kuzmiak, Mrs. Shazer, Mrs. Humbart, Mrs. McGarvey, Mrs. Fielding, Mrs. Lempinen, and Mr. Overberger. See, dads are involved too, so I'd like all those folks to stand and be recognized for the job that they do. We had so many good sellers last year when we had 6 prizes. We expanded that to 10 prizes this year to recognize those folks that have worked so hard. It's both the kids and their parents, we know, but the important thing is to raise funds for the band boosters, but which, by the way, generally goes to purchase instruments. We've just recently approved $1,500 to purchase 2 new tubas. We bought a band, I believe that drum set in the last year, and many trumpets and other kind of cornets and horns and so forth that are offered to us for sale. We have 5 people that came really close, but unfortunately not close enough, but we think that they should be recognized for the effort that they did. And these are the folks that sold over $100, but that fell in the last 5, 11th through the 15th place. And I'd like to recognize them and offer them a consolation prize, which the Bike Candy people provided for us, and that's Denise Paulsa, Doug Highweiler, David Klein, Stacy Kuzmiak, and Carrie Frack. If they're here, I'd like them to come down for just a minute. I'll take the last 10 people in reverse order. In 10th place, Robbie Borum. Is Robbie Borum here tonight? Okay, that his prize was the 10th place prize, which was a hairdryer. Pardon? Her prize? Okay, I'm sorry. Robbie is her. 9th place is Latrissa Johnson. Is she here? Both these folks, they weren't sure if they were going to be able to make it or not tonight, but her prize was a nylon carrying bag. 8th prize is Dale Rill. And Dale won a backpack, school pack, and he sold $205 worth of candy. Terry Ross was in 7th place, and she sold $230 worth of candy. That's a graduate of the Wickliffe Band program, helping me there. My son. 6th place is Daniel Patcham. Is Daniel here? $304. I hope he camps. In 5th place, Cindy Smith sold $334 worth of candy. And she went to Colorado Canyon. Congratulations, Cindy. In 4th place was Pam Humbard with $398 worth of candy. And she went to Sanyo Mini Stereo Cassette Player. That's the Sanyo version of the Sony Walkman. In 3rd place is Frank Tizano with $404, and he went to 12-inch black and white television. Now, Dad's going to take the TV home for Frank, I guess. In 2nd place, Bill Aravitz won a Sony compact stereo radio recorder, and he sold $509 for it. And in 1st place with a sale of $700 worth of candy is Kim Lashinsky. This is what makes it work. It's a lot of hard work, and we get sick of the candy, and sometimes we get sick of the parking, the buses, and all that kind of thing. But that's what makes it a successful program at Wickliffe. And I think all these kids deserve a big round of applause.
Thank you. And I personally would like to thank the people that made an effort to go out and sell candy. It takes money to run a music department, and one of our biggest fundraisers is this candy sale, and I, like the rest of you, can get very tired of people knocking on the door selling things. And I appreciate the support of the people that sold it, the support of the candy captains, and support of the people that bought it to help out the program. You can see things like new chairs, new stands, which are essential, instruments, things like this that come not only from the boosters, but from the Board of Education, who are seeing to our needs and helping us out along the way. And I certainly, Mike, thank you, who are helping us out. And speaking of Mike, I almost forgot another one of our stalwart people who has helped us out throughout the year, both at band camp, at the games, at the practices. Our vice president of the band boosters and a very personal, close friend of mine, Mike Casadani. Would you stand up, Mike? And I would like to also thank the custodial staff for their help in preparing the field for rehearsal and games and festivals for us, for helping us set up things like the gym where we can put on these concerts for you when we have our rallies. Mr. Larry Quinn and his staff have seen to our needs. Mr. Filsinger from the board office has helped us when we requested it. And the faculty as a whole has been more than generous. Every time there's a pep rally or any kind of a school function that requires a band, these students are constantly being pulled from class so that they can warm up, set up, and get ready to play. And the teachers and the administration have been more than helpful and willing to go along with it. And I sincerely appreciate their help. And I think our students do too. They are very supportive of our program, and my thanks to them. Okay, on we go. One of our yearly traditions, which I think is an outstanding tradition, is at the last home game, our seniors write our show for us. I write the rest of them, and the seniors come up and write the last one. They get together in little committees and groups, and they put together the routines, they select the music, they take it out in the field, they rehearse it, they write up the sheets, and they learn anything by it. They learn, number one, that it takes a lot of time to do it, and they learn a little patience by going through it. I'm going to ask them to stand as a group, since there are so many of them. The seniors, if you were here last night and weathered the cold to come out and watch the band and watch the game, you saw our senior show. And I'm going to ask all those seniors who participated in that senior show and who wrote it with it, please stand and be recognized. Come on, up. And one other bit of help I had this year. Every year, I think the hardest thing I have to do, starting in the summer around late June, is get started. Get the music, start looking at it, start thinking up routines, and start planning them out. And start figuring out the choreography and all that stuff. And every once in a while, I just hit a snag. And I made up my mind I was going to do flash dance this year because it was popular. I liked the arrangement and I wanted to do it, but I couldn't come up with anything that I really liked. I'd be out in the backyard kicking around and dancing up and down, and my neighbors watching me going crazy, wondering if I was really as normal as I think I am. And I finally said to my daughter, Lori, I said, do something with this tune. I can't come up with anything. If you saw the flash dance routine and you liked it, that was my daughter's doing. She gets the credit for it, and I'm going to ask her to stand up and be recognized. For her career, she says she wants to be a band director, and I keep wondering where I went wrong. I'm going to talk to her to that. I'm going to ask our student conductor again to come up, Doug Highwiller. The next 3 tunes on the program are the tunes that you saw in the senior show, and since they are the seniors' tunes, I'm going to let our senior student conductor conduct them. Doug? During the homecoming game, we tried a new exit. We usually exit, most bands do, playing their fight songs. And we did, but right before we played our fight song, I probably made the gravest error I've ever made, and that was I played the Michigan fight song. Especially when your superintendent's son goes to Ohio State. That was not the smartest thing I've ever done. And he made sure I knew about it. So, if you look at the next three tunes on the program, we're going to play these three fight songs for you. Well, two of them are fight songs. And they're just a lot of fun to play, and they're very musical. We hope you enjoy them. We played them during the homecoming parade. The Notre Dame Victory March, the victors, it says, please sing along. Well, if you flip to the last page, there are words back there. Now, we want you to sing. Now, I don't want to have to stop and bawl you out because you're not doing your job. We don't want to rehearse. Now, we'll be here till midnight rehearsing if you don't sing along. We changed the words a little bit to fit our own school, so we took the word Michigan out for all those Ohio State fans. And we hope that you'll sing with us when we're singing. And then the third song of the set is not the Ohio State fight song as you know it. This is called French National Défilé. You'll probably be more familiar with it, and it's the song that the Ohio State band plays when they are spelling their script Ohio. It's probably more famous than their fight song. So we hope that you enjoy it. more thank yous to give. I would first of all like, since I mentioned the program, I think we should call attention to the fact that Mr. and Mrs. Lazuski are here tonight. They own Copy Quick Printing in Wickliffe, and they are responsible for those beautiful programs you see in front of you tonight, as well as all our concerts with posters. They donate these to our music department, and this is their way of helping out, and I think Mr. and Mrs. Lazuski should stand up and be recognized. It's nice to have friends like that. They really are very helpful. And finally, I've thanked everybody in the place, except for probably the most important people in the room, and that's the young ladies and gentlemen sitting behind me. Marching season is a long time. It starts in August. I remember back in the days when they complained about how hot it was. Last night they complained about how cold it was. Sometimes they complain about how dry it is. When it's raining, they complain about how wet it is. But they're always there doing the job. And many, many times, we as directors, my assistants and myself, have sat together over a cup of coffee or in the confines of my office and have talked about this year's band and how thrilling it's been to work with these young ladies and gentlemen. They are a very precise group, a very closely knit group, and they have made my marching year so far one of the most enjoyable ones I've had. And I'm going to ask you, along with myself, to give them a nice round of applause for the job they have done. Every week, and they put on quite a show. And I'm very, very proud of this group. I'd like to feel that we're one big happy family. Maybe sometimes not so happy the way we have to get the job done, but it always gets done, and I'm very, very pleased with this group this year. Okay, on we go with the Battle Hymn of the Republic. their last marching band concert. We are going to acknowledge them as well as their parents for their dedication and the work that they have done, some of them for 3 years, some of them for less, having joined band in their junior year, etc. But nevertheless, they have given me the senior class effort that I would want, and they have done such a good job, and I'd like to acknowledge them. I'm going to ask them to come to the front of the band and stand, and when I announce their parents' name, would you please come and stand alongside your son or daughter, and then we'll play the alma mater with the seniors and the parents up here. And if you'll hold your applause until they're all read. We'll start with our band officers. Our president, Chris Lentz, represented by his parents, Mr. and Mrs. Joe Pata. Our vice president and drum major, Eddie Judd, represented by Lou and Jean Judd. Our secretary treasurer, Jackie Meyer, represented by Harold and Joan Meyer. Our student conductor, Doug Highwiller, represented by his parents, Mr. and Mrs. Mo McGarvey. Our properties manager, Eric Dietz, and his parents, Mr. and Mrs. Donald Dietz. Our other properties manager, Chris Brown, and his mother, Ms. Jacqueline Brown. Our publicity manager, Michelle Kendig, and her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Kendig. Our other publicity manager, Robin Knopp, and her parents, Bob and Betty Knopp. Our head majorette, Lisa Sturmack, and her parents, Mr. and Mrs. John Sturmack. Our librarian, Melissa Stoyce, and her parents, Jack and Betty Stoyce. Other seniors include Lynn Cherney and Mr. and Mrs. Albert Cherney, Dave Klein, his parents, Ed and Carol Klein, Becky Cole, and her parents, Mr. and Mrs. John Cole, and her grandmother, Mrs. Beulah Mulder, Alana DiLiberto, and her mother, Mrs. Mary Lou DiLiberto, Julie Fielding, and her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Kevin Fielding, Kim Graham and her father, John Graham, Dave Mancy and his mother, Judy Mancy. Almost said his mommy. That's talk about teaching elementary school in the morning. Whoa, watch yourself. Kathy McDaniel and her parents, Mr. and Mrs. McDaniel. Cheryl Petrus and her parents, Barbara and Stephen Petrus. Roberta Smith and her mother, Mrs. Marjorie Smith. Julie Spizak and her parents, Wally and Carol Spizak. And Amy Tomps and her father, Mr. Adolph Tomps. Did I miss anybody? I think these people deserve a round of applause for many years of dedication. Anybody that can put up with me for 3 years deserves a round of applause. I'm going to ask, just kidding. Going to ask our drum major, Eddie Judd, to conduct the alma mater. I'm going to ask you to stand, please. The words are on the back. Please sing along with us. When the alma mater is finished, we are going to play the fight song, and that is your cue to leave. We will play nothing after it. There's band candy out there for those of you who have yet to get your candy cavities. You can still pick some up. And there is a free will donation box somewhere. Yep. If you haven't seen that, there's one of those around too. We would certainly appreciate your help. Okay, the alma mater and our student conductor, Eddie Judd. No, he's our drum major. Our student conductor was before. I'm all right. It's getting late. Thank you all for coming. It's been a wonderful audience.
If you don't hurry up, I'm just going to shut them off.